Once on the farthest edge of a vast and tangled forest, where the trees whispered secrets to the wind and the owls blinked with slow, knowing eyes that had watched countless ages pass, there lived a girl named Vasilisa, a child of quiet strength and fierce love, raised by her father, a woodsman whose hands were roughened by years of carving paths through the ever-growing wilderness and whose voice carried warmth even when spoken softly around the crackling fire. And Vasilisa, no ordinary child by any measure, learned the ways of the woods not from books or teachers, not from scholars or sages, but from her father's patient guidance, from the rhythm of her footsteps against earth, from the steady breathing of the forest as it shifted and whispered with life, and from the creatures who regarded her with cautious trust. The wolves who observed her from a distance, the foxes who flicked their tails in mild curiosity, the crows who croaked greetings from the tallest branches, and even the stubborn wild boars who snorted disdainfully but never charged her, for they could sense her respect for their world. And often her father would laugh as she traced tracks with her fingertips or pointed out signs he had not yet seen, saying, "You track better than a wolf, Vasya," to which she would grin and reply, "That's because wolves never had you to teach them," and they would laugh together. Their small cottage tucked into the comforting fold of trees, their meals simple but joyous, their evenings full of stories, the kind that glow like embers in the mind long after the fire dies out. But even in a forest so full of life, darkness has a way of seeping in when the seasons shift, and when the first frost fell, delicate yet merciless, this darkness found its way into their home, beginning with a shiver in her father's hands that he tried to hide with a shrug, then a cough, deep, rattling, dry, that grew worse each passing day, gnawing at his strength, draining the color from his cheeks, dimming the once bright glint in his eyes. And though Vasilisa brewed pine bark tea, wrapped him in furs, whispered words of reassurance, and begged the spirits of the forest to help her, nothing worked, and by the seventh day he no longer spoke. His eyes closed more often than they were open, his breath thin and fragile as a leaf trembling on its stem. That night, while the wind howled like wolves across the chimney and the moon hid behind racing clouds, Vasilisa dreamt vividly, as though a voice beyond the veil of sleep pressed its message into her bones. Beyond the whispering trees past the river that remembers lies the house that walks and never slumbers. Inside the witch holds power and potion, but beware the price for her dark devotion. And Vasilisa knew this name, Baba Yaga, for every child in the region knew the stories. The house on chicken legs, the iron-toothed witch, the one who bargained with riddles and demanded impossible tasks, the one whose mercy was unpredictable as a storm, whose hunger was whispered about in the quiet corners of markets. But love does not bow easily to fear, and at dawn, with frost biting her eyelashes and the weight of determination settling in her chest, she packed what little she could: a crust of barley bread, a strip of dried trout, her father's old flint knife, a silver hairpin from her mother, the only relic she had of her, and a small jar of goose fat for the cold. "I'll come back with a cure," she whispered, kissing her father's chilled hand. At first the trees welcomed her, recognizing her scent, her light step, her familiarity. Squirrels chattered above as if cheering her on, birds swooped overhead to guide her, and a fox watched her silently from the underbrush with warm amber eyes, as though blessing her journey. But as noon passed, the familiar trails twisted unnaturally. The sun hung too long in a single position, as if time itself hesitated. The forest whispers deepened into murmurs she could no longer decipher, and soon she found herself repeating the dream's words aloud to keep courage steady. Beyond the whispering trees, past the river that remembers. By dusk, she stumbled upon a clearing she had never seen, its center dominated by a gnarled, hollow willow tree whose bark was etched with runes older than the forest itself. Inside the hollow lay a fragile bird skeleton, wings outstretched in silent agony. When Vasilisa touched the runes, the willow spoke not with sound but with feeling, pressing a message of ancient truth into her heart. Kindness opens doors where strength cannot. She bowed her head gratefully. That night she slept in the crook of a tree, the stars blinking like ancient eyes above, their cold light watching over her. By the second day she reached the river, narrow, deep, winding like a serpent across the land, whispering in 1,000 tongues, its waters silver and full of memory. "River that remembers," she called. "Let me pass, and I will carry your memory." The river replied in a voice like water over stone, "You speak the old way. Few remember how. But tell me, what will you forget to save the one you love?" And Vasilisa, without hesitation, answered, "My fear. I will forget my fear." The spirit smiled within the water, and the current parted, allowing her to cross on glistening stones. By twilight she saw the skulls, human skulls, hollow-eyed, glowing faintly, resting atop posts like lanterns marking the entrance to a forbidden realm. And then she saw it. The house on chicken legs, towering, pacing restlessly, talons sinking into the earth, roof creaking, windows glowing like watchful eyes. Vasilisa stepped toward the gate, which swung open as though sighing, whispering, "Be clever, little one, and generous. It may save your life." She entered, her heart hammering even though she had vowed to forget her fear, and the door creaked. Open to reveal Baba Yaga herself, tall and crooked, with iron teeth gleaming and hair like tangled smoke. "Well, well, well," the witch rasped. "A child in my woods. What do you want?" Vasilisa swallowed, then said, "My father is sick. I came for a cure." The witch's eyes widened, then narrowed with amusement. "And what will you give?" "Me in return? I will cook and clean and serve you for one night if you promise to give me the cure," Vasilisa answered. "We shall see if you're worthy," Baba Yaga said, licking her iron teeth. "Sweep the yard until every speck of dust is gone. If I find one, just one, I'll feed you to my geese." Vasilisa bowed and began sweeping, but the thorns tore at her hands, the dust danced away from her reach, mocking her. Then a small pine sprig, gifted by a whispering breeze, appeared at her feet. She used it, and the dust clung to the needles like iron filings to a magnet. By sunset the yard gleamed. Baba Yaga sniffed and grunted. "Boil stew," she commanded, "with no fire, no water, and no meat." Vasilisa felt panic rise, but a feather drifted from the rafters, glowing faintly. She caught it and it burst into a warm flame in her palm. She melted morning dew from leaves for water, placed a pine cone for meat, and the pot simmered with fragrant steam. Later Baba Yaga pointed to the hearth. "Don't sleep, watch my fire. If it dies, so do you." Hours dragged by, her eyes heavy, but the golden leaf in her pocket began to pulse gently, glowing just enough to keep her awake. By dawn the fire still burned. Baba Yaga scowled. "You've done well, too well. This will heal your father." She placed a flask in Vasilisa's hand, but smiled wickedly. "But I feel you still plan to eat me," Vasilisa said quietly. Of course I do," Baba Yaga laughed. "You're clever and strong, just the kind I like. A little garlic, a little thyme, delicious." Vasilisa bolted. Baba Yaga shrieked and lunged after her. Vasilisa hurled the silver hairpin behind her. It became a wall of mirrors, confusing the witch with endless reflections. She threw the golden leaf, which erupted into a field of sunflowers taller than giants. Their thick stalks tangled around the witch's limbs, slowing her. Finally she threw her father's flint knife. The ground split open into a fiery chasm, the flames roaring like dragons. Baba Yaga screeched, retreating. Vasilisa ran until her lungs burned, crossing the remembering river which lifted her gently, guiding her home. The willow bowed its branches as she passed. She burst into the cottage. Her father lay still. Hands trembling, she uncorked the flask and poured 3 drops into his mouth. Nothing, then a breath, then a cough, then life returning to his eyes. "I'm home," she whispered, tears falling. And though Vasilisa never spoke of the exact path she took, nor the words whispered by river or tree, her story spread, and she came to be known as Vasilisa the Brave, the healer who listened to trees, respected rivers, honored promises, and taught others to do the same. And Baba Yaga, they say, still waits in the deepest part of the forest where her house paces on restless legs. And if you ever hear a slow, rhythmic swoosh, swoosh, swoosh behind you, you would do well, very well, to run.